All right, Emma, today we're going to go through page 315. And we're going to go through, I think, all the questions on the page, so it's going to be a lot. So we're going to multiply fractions. Our first fraction is 3 over 5 times 1 over 9. I'm going to show you two ways to do this because our answers must be written in simplest form. So you probably remember how to multiply fractions. You're going to multiply the top numbers 3 times 1, and you're going to multiply the bottom numbers 5 times 9. Okay, so you're going to get 3 over 45. And then you have to remember how to reduce them. So there's a couple ways you can figure out, okay, what does 3 and 45 have in common? So 3 only has two factors, 1 and 3. 45 has 1 and 45, 5 and 9. What else does it have? 3 and 15, and it might have more, but that's what I have for now. So we can see that they both have 3 in common, so we can divide both of them by 3, and we get 1 over 15. I'm going to solve this using a completely different way. And again, there's no wrong way to do it. They are two totally acceptable ways to solve your problems. But instead of simplifying at the end, we're going to simplify in the beginning. And you've probably heard of cross multiplying, but this is actually going to be cross simplifying. So I'm going to look at the numbers that are across from each other diagonally, 1 and 5. Can I simplify a 5 and a 1? No, they don't have any common factors. Obviously, 1 is as small as it gets. But now I'm going to look at the 3 and the 9. Can I simplify 3 and 9? Yes, I know that 3 can go into 3 one time, and I know 3 can go into 9 3 times. So I'm going to rewrite my question now as 1 over 5 times 1 over 3, and I get 1 over 15. So I know that's a lot. We're going to practice both ways because, you know, you might like the first way better, but you might like the second way better, but you're not going to know unless we practice. So let's go ahead and clear that out. All right, next question. We have -7 times 1/3. So how do we multiply a whole number times a fraction? Well, we really need to turn the whole number into a fraction. So we're going to make it -7 over 1 times 1 over 3. It's very important that you leave the negative with just the number 7. Don't put a negative on the 1, because remember, if we multiply a negative and a negative, we get a positive. So if I made this -7 over -1, it's actually going to equal a +7. So it's very, very, very important that the negative just stay with one of the numbers, and I would just put it on top. It doesn't matter. You could put it on the bottom. You could make it a -1 and a +7, but I think it's just easier to leave it up at the top. Then we do -7 times 1. A negative times a positive is a negative. 1 times 3 is 3. So this is our answer. Now, if they wanted it in simplest form, we might need to turn this into a mixed number. So we would have to divide 3 into 7. So 3 goes into 7 2 times. So we would have, well, let's put that negative with the 2. So 3 goes into -7 and -2 times, because -2 times +3 equals a -6. -7 minus 6 is 1. So we're going to do -2 and 1/3. And I know that was kind of confusing. But we'll just pull that negative sign out and put it in front, if that makes it easier. And then we don't need to mess with the negatives at all in our division. We can just keep it all positive, but we know that there was a negative for our final answer, so we're just going to put it out front. Okay, and there was no way to cross simplify this before, so we're just going to leave it as this. We don't need to do the second method. Let's try another question. 2 over 5 times 1 over 3. 2 times 1 is 2, 5 times 3 is 15. And that is as simple as we can get. We can't divide 2 into 15. It's not an even number, so we're left with just that answer. All right, let's try 2 over 7 times 3 over 5. 2 times 3 is 6, 7 times 5 is 35, and it cannot be reduced anymore. All right. Let's try this one. This is going to be a good one. And actually, I'm going to write it a little bit differently than how I wrote it here. It looks like the negative is kind of right in front of the fraction. It doesn't really belong to the 1, and it doesn't really belong with the 3. But if you remember, only one of those numbers is negative. So we're going to move it, and I just like keeping it at the top. Seems always easier for me, but if you want to move it to the bottom, it's okay. But it doesn't belong to both numbers. It only belongs to one number. Okay, so method 1, we're going to multiply the top numbers. Negative 1 times 3 is negative 3. A negative times a positive is a negative. 3 times 7 is 21. Now we need to see what factors 3 and 21 have in common. And they both have a 3 in common. So we can divide both by 3. And we get negative 1 over 7. Remember, the answer was negative, so we need to leave that negative out there. But let's try option 2, because we've only practiced it one time. So we have this cross simplify option here, and there are 2 exact 3's. So I can do 3 divided by 3 is 1, 3 divided by 3 is 1, and I'm going to rewrite my question. So I have negative 1 over 1 times 1 over 7. Negative 1 times 1 is negative 1. 1 times 7 is 7. So I'm getting the same exact answer. I'm just doing it a little differently. The only reason I like option 2 better is because we're keeping our numbers smaller. Once we start getting into really big numbers, it's also really easy to make mistakes with those big numbers. So it's just but if you don't practice option 2, you could make some mistakes in there. So it's not always the best option. Just make sure you're comfortable with it first. So we have, again, that negative 1 over 10, where the negative's kind of right at the same level of the fraction bar. And then we have times 5 over 6. So again, I'm going to move that negative sign so it's with the top number. And I am going to do the first method. Negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. 10 times 6 is 60. What numbers do 5 and 60 have in common? All right, ran out of room there, and I missed my 5. But they both have a 5 in common. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then 12, 15, 20, 30, and 60. Okay, so they both have a 5. See how complicated that could be? Okay, so negative 5 divided by 5 is a negative 1. 60 divided by 5 is 12. Now let's try again with cross simplifying. 10 and 5, we know they can both be divided by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, 10 divided by 5 is 2. We write our new fraction, negative 1 over 2 times 1 over 6, and we get negative 1 over 12. All right, how's that going so far? All right,